Uh, yeah, Mr. Colgan, you also have similar situation in UK, mostly work through video conferencing and work from home.
Yeah, we're working from home nearly all the time and doing conferences. So we have a national conference next week on
Okay.
food. So yeah, so
Okay.
similar, not as big as this.
No, actually, this pandemic has taught us that probably we were doing everything wrong way. Even our offices were wrong. Working from home is as efficient.
Yeah, it's. I think it's. Well, it is, but I think I miss contact with my colleagues. Yeah, actually, day-to-day talking contact is quite useful. So has its downsides. So yeah, it's an interesting scenario.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're having a big surge now in the UK. Another second wave of virus coming. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. That's it. But generally, people are quite scared and cautious, or have
Well,
now become used to.
they started off being scared and cautious. Then in the summer, people relaxed too much.
Yeah.
And especially the younger generation were
Yeah.
socializing too much, and yeah, that's caused a lot of infections going into families. So younger generation affecting the older
Yeah.
generation.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're about to see another big wave of. Yeah. And India,
Yes.
you coming down or are you still going up?
See the to call it the percentage of growth is going down. The percentage of people tested and getting positive is going down quite significant, but the absolute numbers are still high. So it is, I think, total is about 7.5 million, and I think Delhi is about 60,000 or so. But the thing is that for country of India's size and also relatively people not very, uh, all of Indians are not very sort of have access to either healthcare or hygiene and things like that. It's pretty well within limits. We thought that in some of these urban slums, uh, like one in Mumbai, once it breaks in those places, it will be very fatal. But I think people were quick to respond back and uh, have been able to control even in those places.
That's good. Yeah, very good.
Where is your maximum work happening? Is it the same? It was the Tropical Horticultural Institute. Is the same thing? No.
Sorry, me.
Your institute?
My institute used to be tropical. Yeah, it used to be many years ago. It's changed in 1990.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. It used to be tropical. Just a
Couple of
minute.
crops. Yeah, before my time.
Achha, okay. So I've when it was Tropical Institute long back, we had some interaction. I was at that time in Agriculture Export Development Authority, so we were getting some informations and things like that from there. So
Yeah,
it's very well. It's very, I mean, organized research you have. I
it's a very
hope.
big,
Yeah.
it was quite a big organization then. It's changed, so much smaller now. But in its heyday, it was 700 staff. So
Yeah. Yeah.
now 100.
And where your research is maximum happening in Europe or Asia or where?
Me personally, in Europe and UK, but most of my colleagues are either Asia or Africa. So
Okay.
sub-Saharan Africa. A lot done in Nigeria, some in
Okay.
India. So I've been in India. In February, I was in India on a small
Okay.
project, um, Haryana.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I think people will keep on joining and going out. So we can sort of start the session, and I think in between people will come and will join, and then if anyone comes. Uh, well, I welcome all the panelists, CII sports staff, IT team, and participants to this Kisan Goshthi. For your benefit, Mr. Palgan, Kisan Goshthi means the exchange of views in a meeting by farmers. That's the literally meaning of this. So, this pandemic has to all of us has taught many new things, um, including this one. Agritech used to be a very vibrant physical event in Chandigarh, and Kisan Goes were sort of a also happening thing in those events, conferences and Kisan Goshtis. So separate sessions and parallel sessions were held for Kisan Goshtis. Now I think everything, even that agritech is happening virtually. So is the Kisan Goshtis. Um, well, I think the topic today is very interesting. Um, and I think we all of the panelists will are very renowned and prominent people in their field, and I'm sure that a lot of contribution will be made to the thought process on this important topic of post-harvest handling of fruits and vegetables. Um, Practically, what personally I think is that from farmer to market, this entire thing should be covered in our discussions today. Um, of course, if I have to divide this entire thing into different segments and the people responsible in those segments, then I'll say that we have three different where the interventions and the actions need to be taken to do that. Mr. Palgan, for your benefit and for other this thing, and others will correct me. There is a lot of post-harvest loss. You also mentioned in your representation about post-harvest losses, but in India the post-harvest losses are really phenomenal. and they are for such a large production base, it becomes a huge quantity and amount. Sometimes we say that the post-harvest losses in India for fruits and vegetables are as much as production in Australia. So that is the level of post-harvest losses. In terms of percentages, different estimates have been made by different organizations at different times, and mostly it ranges from, say, between 25% to 40%. Dr. R.K. Singh will be, um, I am sure that in his talk he will take up this topic as to how much these losses are, because his institute has done a lot of work on in this regard. So when the losses are high, what we need to do? So therefore, I think that we have to have interventions and actions at three levels. One is the farmer and his labor at the farm level itself. Other is that aggregation and aggregators, the aggregation points, that is where we need to do take actions. And third, of course, is markets. I'm not touching specifically the post-harvest infrastructure, because the second level will be of from starting from a very small base of aggregators. That means some agents working with few farmers, and they aggregate. It could be a big organization which is purchasing from the farmers, doing the post-harvest management, and then um, it can be uh, taken up. The third, at market level, that is something that is very new to India, new and happens mostly in India. As far as the other advanced countries or other nations are concerned, their markets are well organized. They have their every buyer and trader or a wholesaler or a broker has his own infrastructure and facilities to take care of the produce. India, mostly those are there is hardly any infrastructure, and therefore there is a common concept of a common infrastructure, which is set up by the market organizers. So these are three places. As far as farmers are concerned, I think very less emphasis has been paid um, in our system. Mostly we thought that setting up infrastructure will take care of the issues relating to the post-harvest management. But that has actually not brought very sort of comprehensive results. That has made interventions and small quantities, maybe 10, 15, 20% of the produce that goes into the system where infrastructure plays a role. The remaining produce, which is marketed directly in the mandis, hardly any interventions have taken place. I tell you, the system is so bad that I visited the aggregation center for tomatoes in Maharashtra. There, the tomato was being filled in boxes, wooden boxes, and after filling this entire thing, they were not able to put the top lid properly. So a labor will sit on that lid and will close that box and then nail it down. So that means the entire thing, and the tomato was harvested. They had actually, by their experience, found that what stage tomatoes will be harvested for which market. But in terms of, because the loss was not apparent there and then itself, in case of sort of a just ripening has started into this thing which was meant for distant markets, and the loss was not there, and therefore they started doing this thing. Similarly, for apple, if you go to the retail markets in India, you'll find that not more than 10% apple will be without any blemish or pressing or some sort of injury that has happened after harvesting. And that is because the training of the labor and training of the farmers has lacked in India. So that is one area I think they were, and it requires not sort of a rocket science to understand that the fruit, once it is thrown, will be injured or damaged, and the injury may not appear immediately, but when it goes to market, that will appear. Similarly, we know that if there are sharp edges in the boxes, or if it is kept in the sun, and if it is not properly taken care of immediately after harvesting, then there will be some damage. Soil, it can be soiled and will have contamination in terms of bacteria, etc. So, it, but it is only a matter of making people conscious. We had last year done one project for World Bank sponsored project, horticulture development program in Himachal Pradesh, where we and Wageningen University were the partners in this. There, our experts, when they went there, and the sorting was taking place in one of the pack houses after the storage period was over, and we found that people were just, there was a group of laborers. They were doing sorting by, observing the produce, and they were throwing the good ones into one heap and throwing the bad ones into another heap. So it was damaging everything, and it was only this thing. When they were told this thing, he said that he brought one apple. You see, I have thrown it. Where is the injury to it? So he didn't even realize that what will happen to this and this thing. So that is one where I think we do this thing. I will take only the second one, and within 3-4 minutes I will finish off my this thing, and then Dr. Palgan can take over. The second one is the aggregation points. So right now, aggregation is happening at the level of traders. So sometimes they are agents of the buyers in distant markets. Sometimes they are the local farmer who aggregates on behalf of other growers. But most of the times, there is hardly any infrastructure or hardly any facilities available for aggregation function. And this needs to be taken care of. One of the things that government is promoting now is about setting up farmer producer organizations. And I think it will be very important if we want to disintermediate, if we want to have farmers his due in the consumer price. This organization need to be developed on a very large scale, and not for the sake of numbers only, but sincerity of farmers or the producers coming together to have a level playing field in the negotiation of trading. So that can happen only if they come together, they have sufficient produce with them, and the produce is managed in a way that there is a segregation of different qualities. There is grading done as per the market requirements, and then the price can be negotiated by them. Otherwise, this will not happen. And once there is a farmer producer organization, it can set up infrastructure, it can set up information network, it can get information from distant markets, it can also do e-commerce, it can do trading online, etc., etc. E-NAM is one thing where trading can be done. So that is another important aspect. And finally, of course, in the market, the infrastructure set up in the market by market committees in the past has not proven to be a solution to the problem of post-harvest management. And that is because one can understand that. That is because that was done at one end. The value chain remained unaffected with that thing. So there was neither before it or after it, there was no sort of linkages with proper post-harvest infrastructure. But we should not be discouraged by those experiences. I think when all the players in this value chain will take cognizance to these effects and are sort of ready to associate with each other, then this solution will be found, and those infrastructure which were not found to be useful in the past will become very critical and will become fulcrum for trading in future. So with this, I will thank you very much for listening to me. All the panelists, I think there is in the program, time slots have been given to all of them, although we are probably overshooting by about 5-10 minutes. But let us try to stick to our, at least the time slot, and I will request my former panelists to this thing. So next, I will like to invite now, as per the program, Dr. Dr. Richard Colgan. He's he's a reader in Natural Resource Institute. I was sharing with him in the past. It used to be called as the Tropical Research Institute. Was one of the best sources for information on horticulture produce. And even from India, we have been lucky enough to have interaction with that institute when I was in APIDA. Dr. Colgan is, he has a strong interest in maintaining the quality of harvested fresh produce, the types of problems that I was narrating, and we should benefit from his learning. Well, this institute is in the forefront of introducing dynamic controlled atmospheric storage. Actually, all of us know that controlled atmospheric storage is of a recent thing in India. Probably maybe 5 years back, we didn't have as many CSOs, but now we have sufficient. But in Europe, um, in advanced countries, the even a further step upwards have been taken, and by introducing dynamic controlled atmospheric storage. I'm sure that Dr. Colgan will dwell on these points. I will now invite him to uh, make his presentation, please.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Mr. Josh, are you going to upload my presentation for me?
Sure, doing it.
Okay.
And Dr. Colgan, just for your this thing, yesterday we thought that after slide we will, I will do this thing, but I think all the participants are a good understand English pretty well, so there is no need to do that today now.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Joshi, IT team, please start
Thank you very
presentation.
much. Thank you very much to the organizers for inviting me to give this talk. Could I have the next slide, please? So I'm going to talk about reducing post-harvest losses in fruits and vegetables. But I think before we start looking at technology that can do that, I think it's very important that everybody in the supply chain tries to understand the amount of losses and the value of those losses in the supply chain. Unless we understand the volume and cost of that, there's very little chance that we'll have interventions that are cost effective. And the more people you have in a supply chain, more likely there are to be losses sustained. So it's important to try and keep your supply chains as short as possible, but also to understand the losses along the way. Next slide, please. So it's very important to understand losses and where they're being occurred, what's being lost, the reason behind that loss. That allows everybody in the supply chain, from smallholder farmers through to advisory services, commercial companies, regional and national governments, to better understand and target and prioritize their loss reduction intervention practices, and also develop policies that will help to reduce losses in the future. And it's very hard to reduce the amount of loss if you don't really know how much loss you're having. So next slide, please. So losses can be incurred in fruits and vegetables all along the supply chain. So in pre-harvest, factors such as diseases and pest infections, and even rodents can cause damage in the field. There can also be physiological damage caused by sun scorch, drought stress, waterlogging, or even insufficient nutrient content going into the fruit or vegetable component. But the biggest area of damage, often loss, is often due to cosmetic damage due to human intervention. So these are often down to poor handling and transporting of produce from the farm through to the markets. And these can be mechanical damage or bruising due to vibration damage in vehicles, or from people picking up and putting down product in a too harsh a manner. It can be due to poor packaging, or crop being left out in the sun too long to shrivel. And also the amount of grading losses and how you grade products will also very much impact on the amount of losses you will see. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk now about a number of different interventions that we have been involved in the UK, but have also utility in India. So I've taken some crops that are widely grown in India. And so I'm starting with pumpkins, which in the UK are mainly grown a small crop, but a growing crop. And the losses in pumpkin mainly are due to rotting after harvest. Next slide, please. So one of the things we found in pumpkin is that a lot of the rotting in pumpkin comes down from the stalk. So this, if you keep the stalk healthy, then you actually reduce the amount of disease going into the fruit itself. So we have organized a number of pre-harvest fungicide sprays to control mildew infections on the leaves and the stalks. And in doing so, we actually reduce the amount of rotting in the fruit, but also increase the yields quite considerably. So spraying for the leaf and stem health also improves the fruit health during storage. And if also you want to store pumpkins for any length of time, then actually harvesting them slightly earlier than full maturation will help to extend the storage life by at least 10% less damage. Next slide, please. So another example of work we've been doing is in cabbage. So we can store cabbages in the UK under a controlled atmosphere for around 8 months of the year. Not all cabbages are stored under controlled atmosphere. Some are stored for shorter periods in air storage at 1 degrees. But the biggest problem in store is the incidence of disease that can lead to up to 40% of the crop being lost. And the big issue we have in the UK is that we've lost one of our major fungicides to control rotting. So we're looking at alternatives to control disease. Next slide, please. So we've gone back into the field to look at alternatives. So one of the options is to actually apply calcium sprays in the field. This helps to protect the outer leaves from infection and strengthens the actual cell walls in the leaves. And by doing so, we've applied 3 different products, which are calcium products. And one of them in particular, called Inca, was very effective in reducing losses due to disease. Next slide, please. We've also been investigating alternative disease control products. These are biofungicides that have been developed. So one of them is called Serenade. This is actually a bacterial product, Bacillus subtilis, but it's used as an antifungal agent. And when we applied it in a post-harvest manner through dipping, drenching, then we found it to be as effective as a standard fungicide. So there are other alternatives coming onto the market which may help growers reduce disease. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to talk about broccoli. So next slide. So broccoli is, we can store broccoli in the UK for about three weeks in cold storage. And that's really to try and just to iron out the ups and downs in demand. So we can store broccoli in a refrigerated cold store about 1 degrees, but we have to humidify that store. So humidification is quite important to prevent shrivel. And also we can apply chemicals to prevent the yellowing of that product. So we have a compound called Smart Fresh that helps to protect against any ethylene, which is a hormone that causes senescence in vegetables. Next slide, please. So this slide shows you on the left-hand side, we have untreated, 2 varieties of broccoli that are untreated that have been stored for up to 3 weeks, 21 days in air at 1 degrees, and then taken out, stored at shelf life conditions, ambient conditions for 3 days. And in the untreated crop, we can see the broccoli is starting to senesce, go yellow. And in the other 2 blocks of treatments there, on the right-hand side and central side, we treated that crop with anti-ethylene compound called Smart Fresh, helping to reduce the amount of yellowing going on in the broccoli, so extending the shelf life. This compound is now available in India. Next slide, please. So one of the important things about harvesting any crop is reducing the amount of time it's sat in the sun, keeping it in the shade as much as possible until it can be taken to somewhere, hopefully a pack house if available, where it can be cooled. And I know there have been great strides into increasing the amount of pack houses being developed in India recently. But removing the field heat is actually essential for extending the shelf life of products. Next slide, please. So what have we been doing where there haven't been access to immediate cooling in a pack house? We have developed a new mobile cooling rig that sits on a tractor trailer that can be taken into the field and used to cool whole pallets of product. So in this case, we can cool a whole pallet of strawberries in about half an hour from ambient temperatures of 25 to 30 degrees down to 5 degrees in 30 minutes. By doing that immediately after harvest, you can reduce the amount of infection from rotting during the shelf life. Next slide, please. So as Mr. Sharma mentioned earlier on, we're much interested in controlled atmosphere storage of fruits and vegetables. We're particularly interested in apple storage, which I know is being used up in Kashmir and Uttar Pradesh. And so the next stage in understanding how to develop controlled atmosphere is using what's called dynamic controlled atmosphere storage, which is where the storage atmosphere is modulated in response to the crop health inside. So in the top right-hand corner, you can see a sensor, a pod containing fruit and sensors, and that goes into a fruit apple store, and you can then reduce the oxygen concentration in that store to levels lower than 1%. And in doing so, you're able to control some of the surface deterioration that you get in apples, bronzing on the apple surface, that is called scald. And by taking the oxygen down to less than 1%, you can significantly reduce the amount of bronzing and damage. So this is called dynamic controlled storage. It allows the oxygen levels to be controlled in relation to the fruit's response to that oxygen concentration. Next slide, please. So this is the last few slides I'm going to talk to you through. So we have a current project in India with the Agricultural University of Punjab and other institutes in India, looking at producing bio-based packaging. So this is where we are using starch from cassava waste mixed with plastic, polyethylene, standard plastic, to produce a bio-based plastic. Next slide, please. And we've been looking at using this hybrid plastic in shrouding and wrapping different fresh produce. The most effective we found is actually using in mushrooms, where because of the water retentive properties of this new hybrid starch plastic film, it actually starts to absorb some of the moisture that condenses on the surface of fresh produce. So in the case of mushrooms, we've been able to improve the quality just by changing the plastic film. Next one, please. Next one again, please. Okay, I think I've run out.
You have to unhide that.
Okay. Can you see that one now or not? Can you see that? So here's a slide just talking about that. So going back to post-harvest losses, I think it's important that we are able to train farmers in how we go about making those losses. And we have developed, particularly in Africa, a toolkit which allows growers to start to understand losses both in the harvesting and in the grading and processing of products. I think it's very useful being rolled out to other countries to allow growers to start to make really accurate measurements of losses in the supply chain. Okay, I think I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Palgan. It was very interesting. I mean, you also talked about a lot of advanced technologies now available for enhancing the shelf life. By the way, what is the maximum shelf life for broccoli?
Well, you can store it for 3 weeks in refrigerated storage. So you have 3 weeks, and then it will then last between 5 and 7 days at ambient. That's what the supermarkets in the UK require. So as long,
Okay.
yeah. So it's a big ask for broccoli.
Yeah, no, because for Indian farmers, the broccoli prices during the season, they are as low as say 40 rupees a kg, and they go high during off season to 250 rupees a kilo. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I thought that. So, thank you very much for sharing with us the advances. I'm sure Dr. R.K. Singh will also touch some of these points, and maybe he will also throw a little bit light on whether the treatments and the chemicals that Dr. Palgan mentioned are available to Indian farmers or are available in Indian conditions or situation or not. I'm sure that with your institute's future collaboration with various Indian institutes and organizations will bring a lot of benefit to the Indian growers. Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation.
Thank you very
Now,
much.
now next speaker is Dr. R.K. Singh. He is from a very well-known institute. He's a project coordinator of AICRP, Plasticulture Engineering Technology of ICR Central Institute of Post-Harvest Engineering and Technology, Ludhiana. They have done a lot of pioneering work, and Dr. Singh has made very significant contributions to science and society through more than 70 wide-ranging publications in national and international journals. Apart from his academic achievements and excellence awards that he has received, we also know that the institute and um, Dr. R.K. Singh himself, person, had made many studies and researches on post-harvest. So I will invite you, Dr. Singh, to talk and give us your views on post-harvest of fruits and vegetables.
Thank you very much, sir. Uh, I want to share my slides. Share button is disabled. Share. I want to share. Please allow me for sharing my slides.
IT team, please.
We are working on it, sir. I'll give you the right.
Okay, no,
Wait for a
okay,
few minutes.
okay. So now it is come.
It's done, sir.
Hmm. Is it okay? Is visible?
Yeah, but you can also put it on slideshow mode.
Okay, okay. Now it's okay.
Yeah, that's all. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Sharmaji, and good morning to all the panelists and participants. We are here. Thank you, CIA, to bring us at the one platform for a very important cause. And everywhere, when we are producing food and we are wasting and losing it, it means we are wasting all the energy, input, everything. Yes. So now I want to have some of my experiences on this aspect, how to handle the fruits and vegetables so that losses can be minimized or wastage can be minimized. Now, you see, in a very short note, you see, so much production. Now, we in the fruits and vegetables, 350 million tons we have reached. If you talk about all fruits and vegetables. And now we are self-sufficient. But how much we are losing, that is a great concern. Apart from the food grain, fruits and vegetables also we are every year we are scaling new heights for the production. But what about the losses? What about the value addition? That is very meager and minimum in our country at present. And minimum is because of we are fond of having fresh vegetables, fresh fruits rather than the processed one. And moreover, our most of the population they depends on the staple food. Fruits, vegetables, they consider it as a secondary. So, for livelihood, for sustainability, uh, food grains are important, and these are considered as optional diet for majority of our. Now, scenario of processing in India, when we are talking about fruits and vegetables, less than 10% we are able to process. More, whereas in many countries, it's touching more than 80%. So, why it is so? Lack of infrastructure, lack of food habits, or different food habits, or farmer and industry interface is a weak channel. Level of commercial processing agricultural commodities, if you go by this one, so different commodities as per the MOFPI side, we have taken it. It's 8% for fruits and vegetables. You will be very surprised to know the post-harvest losses study we conducted in 2012 and 15. And you see under the second last line and the last line. The minimum fruits loss occurred in papaya 6.7% and the maximum occurred in guava 16%. And for vegetable maximum occurred in 12%. These data appears to be very, very less as compared to what we perceive or what we see in the field. This data was taken, I am telling you, because it is a season variation when you are producing more, when the glut season is there, the losses are there. But when glut season is over, then they are very precious item, costly items, and losses are very, very big. So when these are the not a peak season, at that time it was taken, that's why it seems that production is less. 2, 3 data we have taken, but definitely around 20% we are going to lose what we produce food and food. And when we convert into the economic value, so altogether 92,000 crores we are losing every year. This is the data of 2012 and 13. Now, at the MSP or the market prices at the production level, current production level, when we have calculated, now it is coming around 2.25 lakh every year. Every year. And because our production level has gone up, population has gone up, infrastructure remains more or less the same. So that's why the value of losses has. Now, what are the reasons behind this one? Existing supply chain is quite fragmented. Fragmented means at different stages handlings are involved. The growers are plucking, harvesting, then it is coming to a agent, then taking to the mandi, another person, then from there to the storage, the retailer. So the fragmented supply chains are there. That's why we are incurring higher losses than the expected are that reason for the higher losses. And the handling of the raw produce through many stages of the middleman is required, and processing are mostly controlled by urban rather than the rural. The most important things are that whatever our food processing plants are there, these are situated located in the urban area. Now the distance between the production and the processing unit is quite long. So this is also one of the reasons for the high losses. And nowadays, the government has realized this one, and now they are encouraging processing unit, small one in form of a pure and self-help in production catch. So transportation from production to the processing unit is one of the major cause and cause of the losses. And then handling of the raw produce should be okay. This has been done. So higher value addition, better post-harvest management, and lower utility losses. These are how we can achieve. This is our goal. How we can achieve this one? Because we want that our producer, our processor should also be, our grower should also be a same processor. Suppose if some tomato processing unit is there, instead of carrying tomato from the field and to the processing unit, it will incur more losses. It will incur more cost of transport. So why don't you convert into a pulp? So if you transport pulp, the volume will be less, product storage or spoilage will be less. So in that way we have to proceed. So what is the importance of the post-harvest handling? You have to maintain the quality. We have to reduce the post-harvest losses, and food security provides, and health. So all four aspects, if you pay more attention towards post-harvest handling, so all four benefits we are going to. So what should be our objective? What should we focus? Maintain the quality throughout the supply chain from farm to fork. Maintain the quality. What quality improves? Appearance, texture, flavor, nutrition. And then all along you have to follow the food safety laws and reduce the losses between harvest and consumption. This is the only way we can reduce the losses from farm to fork. And what are the various steps involved? Harvesting, then collection, then pre-cooling, then selection, cleaning, grading, disinfection, drying, grading, and then other treatments we have to be packaging, storage, and transport. So 10 steps at least it is involved in the handling. And at every stage we have to be careful to maintain the quality and to maintain the height. So what are the things we have to do? Harvesting stage is very important. When to harvest and what is the physiological age of that particular produce, that is very important. Suppose you are harvesting mango, banana, then it should be matured, but it should not start ripe. That is one thing. If you harvest before maturity, then you will not be getting a good quality produce after ripe. So then treatment, post-harvest treatment, handling method, storage time between harvesting and consumption. So these treatment means washing, handling, grading, packaging. These are the all treatment we have to do. And then interaction among the above details. So other factors may also interact and then it affect the quality. Quality and condition of the produce sent to the market and their consequent selling prices are directly affected by the care taken by the harvesting method. So when we are harvesting, it should be of good quality and it should be free from the mechanical engine. Quality control is the process of reviewing. So it is one of the most important features in achieving the consistency and reliability in the product. Quality control entails good planning, research, management together with the regular training and the review of the procedures. So all the handlers, growers, middlemen, they should be knowing the quality aspect and their consequences. So if they know each and everything, then they will take care itself. And adhering to the quality and producer has the following obligation. What are the obligations? During the harvest, producer must keep a check on the harvest maturity, which I stated earlier, in order to ensure conformity to the market and storage procedures. There should be proper procedure in the field, packing and transport to ensure the produce arrive at the packing house or market in good condition. And supervision should be in place, proper supervision, so that any wrong things can be avoided. During the harvesting, the objective of the grower should be harvest a good quality crop in good condition, keep the harvested in good condition, harvested produce in good condition, and dispose the produce to a buyer market as soon as possible. If you do not have storage facility, dispose it as soon as possible. This is the reason why farmers are facing problem, because the intermediate storage facility we are not having. It's very important because when the glut market is there, farmers are bound to sell it because they don't have it. So government is trying to develop the infrastructure in spite of so much support from the government. Even then, it is not rising up to that, picking up to that pace. So that is the concern we have to address. Harvesting must be rapid, must be minimize the damage and contamination of vegetable, soil, compost, microbes, pathogens. These things we have to take care. And the harvested vegetables should be pre-cooled quickly. As our earlier speaker told, pre-cooling has a great impact on the shelf life. And I will elaborate the methods of pre-cooling for different produce little later. There is also a need for careful handling during the harvesting to avoid mechanical injury, such as wooden container with rough edges, overpacking, damage by long nails, jewelry, or throwing procedure produce like that. So these things we have to take. Vegetables such as lettuce, which we have to eat raw, that we have to wash is very nicely with a good quality water, because we are not cooking, we are eating it raw. And water used for washing should be potable, free from pathogen. Microbial contamination should be free from. Use only potable, frequent change of washing water. So washing water should also be changed accordingly and frequently. So post-harvest handling for hydroponically grown crops. So there are different types of crop. If you are growing hydroponically, if you are growing in open condition, if you are growing in protected condition, they are all water contained, their textures are different. So you have to take very care or deal the things very carefully, because their texture, water content are different. So plant that can be grown hydroponically include the tomato, eggplant, cucumber, green onion. Hydroponically grown plants are very perishable. These things you have to take care, very perishable, and because it has a high water content and should therefore be handled carefully. That is one thing. when you are handling hydroponically grown crop, three degenerative conditions should be avoided: heat injury, water loss, and premature senescence, ripening and maturity. So heat injury, water loss, and ripening and maturity that you have to see when you are harvesting hydroponic. And then after picking, you don't put your produce in the sun, put under shade, number one. Okay, sorry. At the time of harvesting, either you harvest in the morning or harvest in the late evening. So it will avoid your field heat in the produce. Then packing and packaging material you have to take care. Principal benefit of packaging is to protect against the physical damage through inadequacy in the handling and transport of food. Because packing is very important when it is packed in the truck or in vacuum and it is transported. So physical injury that has to be it should be avoided. So packing should be in for that purpose. So packing container trays containing harvested vegetable must be placed on pallet to avoid contamination and kept in separate area. During the packing, packer should observe the following things. What are the things? Wash their hands with detergent before after handling the vegetable. Must not smoke, drink, eat, even packing the vegetables as they may introduce microbes from their mouth. And they should wear rubber gloves and apron during the packing. So all hygiene conditions, procedures, and protocol is to be followed. And then accordingly you have to choose your packing material from where if you are going to a retail market, you are selling to a mandis or selling into a processing factory. According to that, you have to select packaging material. Right. This also modified packaging paper or plastic film they are often used to line packing boxes in order to reduce the water losses or to create friction damage. So these technologies are already available. And if you want to transport for long distances, including crates, plastic crates is to be there. Then for small distances or for the retail market, then paper, cardboard or fiber board can be used. So different packaging material according to your situation you have to set it. Okay. Uh, then at the time of storage, the storage applied to fresh produce means holding of fresh fruits and vegetables under controlled conditions. So that is the primary objective of the storage. What should be the principle? Reducing the metabolic activity of the stored product. We have to store in such a condition that metabolic activity can be minimal. Because these activities are only responsible for rotting. Spoilage. And several storage techniques, ground storage, ambient storage, refrigerated storage, air cooled storage, zero energy storage, modified energy storage, atmospheric storage, high hyperbaric storage, and controlled atmospheric storage are used. So different techniques are used, and the growers should be taught in that aspect. And the cold storage facility, this is must. When you have to avoid the direct market, you could be. I have seen one National Horticulture Board have constructed a storage for the apple in Kashmir. So for a minimal charges, the farmers are giving their produce, storing there, paying 50 paise or 60 paise per kg. And whenever they are comfortable, they want to sell, they can sell. Because every farmer cannot create storage facility for them. So it must be on community base and it must be on payment basis. So that's why if such structure can be replicated at different places, it will help to reduce losses to the great extent. Now, as I have told you, pre-cooling, what does purpose of the pre-cooling? Removal of the field heat from the body, reduce moisture losses, reduce respiration, reduce microorganism, and increase cell. These are the five purpose of the pre-cooling. And what are the effect of the pre-cooling? If it is cooled, then it will be having greater life. So there are different methods of pre-cooling. One is the room cooling. We put the produce in the room on the fan, it will remove the film. This is one. But some of the fruits and vegetables that require room cooling fruits, these are the vegetables. By room cooling, it can be done. Tomato, capsicum, and brinjal, cabbage. This can be there. Then forced air flow. You have to put air and then remove the air, or cool air you can introduce in the chamber. Then fast field heat can be removed. So these are the things which require fast removal of the field. Broccoli, strawberry, and cucumber, grapes, cherries, like that. Fast field. So for this purpose, you have to introduce the fan so that you can remove the activity. Then hydrocooling. Some of the products are there. Amla, then you put into the water. Hydrocooling is suitable for use in cooling a wide range of water tolerant food. It must be water tolerant. If you do strawberry here, it will not work. So water tolerant fruit and vegetable can be cooled by hydrocooling methods. Hydrocooling methods, these are the things that can be. So asparagus, leaf, peaches, Brussels sprouts. So these are the things which we can do hydrocool. Then vacuum cool. Rather than forcing air into the chamber, you are taking out the heat from the chamber. So these are there are some arrangements that we can say vacuum. So these are the products that we can vacuum cool. Cabbage, turnip, this maize. Heat pumps. Then ice cooling also is one of the method. It's costly. It will not be feasible for our country, but this is a method that can be used for this. And for this one, you see pea, then turnip, lettuce, asparagus. These can also be done by ice. Then these are the method standardized for different products. Storage condition for vegetable and fruit. For apples, temperature should be 30 to 40, relative humidity 90, 95, and then the pre-cooling methods, say fan, hydro-cooling, so that can be done. R is for room cooling. So temperature, relative humidity, and cooling methods, and then storage life for different products it has been standard. That need to be given to the all the stakeholders so that they can reduce the losses of the food for everything. Now, transportation is one of the most important things because 50%, 40 to 50% of the losses which are occurring mostly it is occurred to the transportation. So transportation is often the most important and the most costly factor in the marketing channel of the food. The method of transport of the fresh produce and vegetable is determined by distance, perishability, and the value of the food. So, what should be the principle? The loading and unloading, we have to be very careful to do. The maximum impact is given imparted to the produce during loading and unloading. So, we have to be very careful because mechanical injury chances are very, very high.
Dr. Singh, Dr. Singh, sorry for intervention.
Okay,
Can you little speed up, please?
Okay, okay. So transit time should be as short as possible. So there are some of the things care should be taken during the transportation. So we are seeing the right hand side picture mostly because we know that more things if you are pouring in a truck, then less transportation cost will be there. But ultimately you are incurring the losses. So refrigerated van or in a very organized system, you transport it, don't overload it. That way you can minimize the loss. So wheelbarrows and cart for transportation if you are doing 1 to 8. Refrigerated and non-refrigerated vehicles for highway transport. So containers for air, railway, water and highway. So these are pallets for air and highway. So these are the transportation equipment recommended depending upon the method and distance. So cold chain model. So farmer groups are there, self-help groups are individuals are there. You do the field collection, then pre-cooling chambers, then refrigerated transport, and ultimately either you send it to the market or to the store. Or in this whole process, the PPP mode is the most effective public-private partnership. Government is giving subsidy, government is giving incentive to the infrastructure creators, but farmers need to take it, their produce to that place. Then only they will be getting the profit. You see, 40% dumped in the West. Whatever we are producing, 40% it is dumped into the West. India has 6,000 cold storage facilities, but capacity you see 30 million metric ton, which caters about 11% of the total produce. So remaining 89% we don't have present. Most of the infrastructure used in the cold chain sector single commodity based. We are having storage only for the potato. Why not we are having same thing for other vegetables and fruits? So there is great need for multi-commodity cold storage facility. 75% of potato, 25% of fruits and vegetables, and arrangement needs to be done. Expected growth this sector 19% per annum, but actually it is not growing at this. Presently, refrigerated transport business in India is estimated 10 to 12 billion, which includes refrigerated transportation demand for both export and domestic. My point is that in spite of good potential, good growth rate, and high support from the government, why sunrise sector is not taking. This is we are calling post harvest sunrise sector. If you say economic value of reduction in post harvest losses through intervention of cold chain around 30,000 crore we are going to save every year. This is the data of 12 and 13 when we conducted this. Now it means easily we can say by introduction of the cold chain we can save 50,000 crore at present cost. So then packing house is also you have to see mechanism of the packing house what should be just fine.
Dr. Singh, I think we have issue of timings. So sorry for interruption, but I think I will like to thank you very much for very elaborate presentation on post harvest management and covering the entire value chain. Actually, that is very interesting. And my only one small observation. I think you should develop different packages for different people. For example, farmers and the labor at farm level. There should be one package and one package at aggregation level. Package of practices actually. The standard operating procedure, what they should do, what they should not do, do's and don'ts type. That will be very helpful. And if it is done crop specific, it will be even more helpful. Thank you very much for very comprehensive presentation. Now, in the last, I will like to invite Mr. Pankaj Java. He is Deputy General Manager from Blue Star. Blue Star, as you know, is a very well-known HVAC company. It is pioneer in many field in this regard and has a lot of experience and is a future ready organization. So I will invite Mr. Pankaj Java to give his observations, please.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma, for giving my introduction. And I am with Blue Star for almost 17 years now, and I welcome the co-panelists, Mr. Singh and hi Richard, how are you? So we were expecting a lot of audience here, so which is, I see the attendee list currently, maybe the session is being watched somewhere on a screen or some place where some people are sitting. So just thought of sharing my insights. It has been very insightful session given by Mr. Richard and Mr. Singh. I will also share a brief on my observations on this industry in the last 3 years, what we have observed. Horticulture definitely plays a significant role in Indian agriculture. It is contributing to about 30% GDP, which is on 12% arable land area in India. India is second largest producer of fruits and vegetables in the world. Now, there are some facts which I want to share with all my co-panelists. Like we were just hearing Mr. Singh share about the number of cold rooms in the country, which was at 6,300. I thought that I will give my inputs also. The number of cold rooms in the last 3 years has risen to about 10,000 numbers in the country, for a very good reason that farmers, growers and traders to some extent are now becoming aware of the technology and the processes available to reduce the losses and protect the post-harvest crop. And they are also very keen and enthusiastic to know about information of shelf life, temperature, relative humidity, pre-cooling procedures of various crops which they produce. And this has been possible with the ongoing regular efforts of the CII and the industry and the learned people who are in the panel right now, and the spreading of information to every person related in the food chain. Still, there is at our end, we feel as a manufacturer and a service provider to this industry, we still feel that there is a lack of policy support from GOI. Not policy support, it is in terms of awareness to go to the last mile uneducated farmer who is not actually aware what all is available for him to reap benefits from the policies existing in the country, to create a comprehensive value chain system to protect his post harvest. Cold storage facilities have actually expanded in the country. That is what I'm actually coming to. Now, Blue Star as a company has been India's oldest and largest refrigeration company. In the refrigeration industry in India, we still aspire and strive to enhance the infrastructure for post-harvest in the country. We wish to partner with farmers, government, traders, and to come forward and seek technologies available to reduce post-harvest waste. We would have loved to answer queries from the farmers who would have joined the Goshti, and we would request CII and the panelists to kindly route any sort of queries or inquiries or questions coming to them or to us regarding any kind of solution which we can provide to support the cause. Farmers certainly are also devoid and short of resources to invest in post-harvest infrastructure, for which government has schemes like FPO for farmers, which should be encouraged through right education and awareness in the country, so that we can reduce the post-harvest losses. See, a farmer is the most important link in our country, and we need to find ways to reach out to him. That is what we as an industry are aspiring for. I think I will not take much of the time of panelists. We are already running short of time as per the schedule. That is all from my side. If there are any queries or questions, I am available to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Java. It's very interesting that you are actually interested in problem solving rather than just supplying equipment, etc. So that is very good, and thank you very much for that. As I already mentioned, that Blue Star is actually a future-ready organization, and is doing a lot of pioneering work in various fields in HVAC. So I'm sure that you will go a step further, and then rather than being an equipment supplier or machinery supplier, you will become a solution provider to the
Thank you.
farming community. Well, one clarification on audience. Actually, it will not appear here because there is a separate link for audience that is in CI craft, and I don't know because I'm switched on to this Cisco and not to the CII craft. So sure that CII team will tell about the number of people that participated from farming community separately. Well,
Okay.
thank you very much. Mr. Joshi, within ourselves, if we have any question answers, or can we have some questions if there are any from audience or somebody that who are on the CII craft this thing?
No, sir, I haven't received any questions as of now, but we can,
Okay.
we still have time. We can wait for, probably you can discuss amongst yourselves,
Yeah.
and accordingly, uh, in case a question pops up, so definitely I'll get back to you.
All right. So, any of the panelists has any question to the other panelists, please feel free. Rather than question, we can say we can have discussions now on different aspects of post-harvest management. So let us start. If there are any specific questions, let's go with that. But if not, then let's start with our first thing about education to farmer and or on-farm handling, harvesting and on-farm handling. Let's take a topic on that. Yes, Dr. R.K. Singh.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
on-farm handling, actually, sir, under Atmanirbhar Bharat, what we are advocating all the time, that production should be a semi-processor. So that's why making the self-help group or making the FPOs and establish the agro processing in the production catchment, it is a great help. It will reduce the losses.
No, I had a different thought on this thing, Dr. Singh.
Yeah,
You remember that in Punjab, say something like 10 years back, when quinoa was harvested,
yeah.
so a lot of damage used to take place, the rotting and fungus on the pedicle on the stem, where people used to twist it and harvest by twisting the fruit, and then it will get damaged and then fungus will start growing. Then Punjab Agro Industries Corporation, then they imported some clippers from Israel, and they started harvesting with the clippers rather than by twisting the fruit on this thing. Similarly, for Sir Colgan also talked about, how to keep the stem intact in case of pumpkin, because otherwise, if stem is sort of damaged, then the rotting will set in early. Similarly, I've seen even now when quinoa is harvested, a small stem is left on that, which punctures other fruits. May not be the same fruit, but the small portion of that stem actually punctures when it is put into the box. So it will require a lot of training. And what another thing is, say if you see our produce, 60-70% of vegetables are harvested in the afternoon, say between 4 and 7, and are in the market early in the morning at 4 o'clock. So it's a pretty fast. It cannot be anything faster than that. It's
Yeah.
very fast. But if you see the same produce in the afternoon of the same day when it is sold, you will find that it is not in good shape. Basically, it is because of the issues relating to either handling on the farm or certain things that happened on the farm. And if we have, system or the training program for the farmers, which can guide them on this thing, don't keep it in the sun, don't
Yeah.
keep open on the soil, etc. I remember FAO had a manual for developing countries for vegetables. The front page or the title page of that manual depicted a picture where harvesting of beans were taking place somewhere in Africa, and it was kept in the plastic box with a wet cloth on it. And that was they said that the starting point for your produce to be in good shape in the market is this. So similar type of a thing, I think for every crop, if institute like yours could develop some either training program or manuals, even handling manuals itself, because many farmers are now even educated lot is also going into farming. So it can help to a great extent. What is your view on this thing? Have you have any practical experiences where you have undertaken such trainings? Your institute has undertaken such trainings, or you organize any programs for the benefit of farmers?
Yeah, actually, we continuously organize the training program for the benefit of farmers in two modes. One is the farmers are coming to us and we are helping them without any charge, without charging any fees. But when they are coming through certain state government, then we are charging some money. So,
Okay.
okay. So there are the two things. One is we are giving them knowledge or sensitizing them on how to handle the thing. Suppose if you are harvesting any fruit, then crates are available, individual boxes, they crates. So that individual packing of the fruits are very important. We cannot do it for the tomato, we cannot do it for the cherries, but we can do it a bigger fruit. So
Yeah.
what should be, yeah, what should be the specification of the film? What should be the load at tier one or two when we can keep it? You cannot go on loading the boxes one above one endlessly. So two or three boxes we can have. So in that way we are training them, and then how to if you start observing that your product is started rotting, then what to do? Then we are telling that you make the pulse, you add KMNO4 at this rate, or you add the sugar at this rate, and put at this temperature. So we are sensitizing them minimum processing, and minimal processing also we are telling them. So
Uh,
on this,
uh, do you have any manuals on this available readily for to the farmers? If it can be distributed, I mean from your this thing, somebody can take it and distribute it to farmers.
yeah, we have actually not the whole one for the individuals. Say for example, amla processing. Just a minute. For amla processing, we have the complete chain. So
Okay.
for tomato, we have the chain. For the chili processing, so for different commodity, we have the item, not the one literature for all. So for every commodity, we have in the literature, and that we can do. We don't
Good.
have to. Yes.
Good. Richard, do you have any specific experience in any developing countries on this aspect?
Well, we do
If you can
have
share.
training manuals for in Africa for looking at how you estimate losses. So how growers will then go into the field and look for pest and disease, and also then each stage of the harvesting or the grading, then looking at how you can estimate the losses. So we do have information, and we have a toolkit which has been developed for African farmers, but it could be used in any other country around the world.
Okay.
So there are
Okay.
options.
All right. So now let us come to the next stage. We still have, I think, 4-5 minutes. At 12 o'clock, Mr. Joshi. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We have 4-5 minutes now. I think, although it will not, Mr. Colgan will not be, but Pankaj and Dr. Sab, can contribute to this. FPO, the role of FPO and what they should do and what type of structure they should have. Although there is a legal part of it, but I'm talking about the working and functional and operational part of it. So, what are your views on how what FPOs should do and how they can be organized? Because as we know that the cooperation amongst the farmers in our country is not very sort of to be proud of, because farmers have individualistic approach towards this thing. But I think future lies in developing FPOs who can become the aggregator and marketer of the produce.
See,
Yeah, Pankaj ji, you have any? Yeah.
there are a lot of on a ground level, what we see, there are a lot of vested interests which are playing in, obstructing the way of fair operation of FPOs. Which is the reason why a farmer is also not able to trust the FPO setup. That is our observation. So, see, the farmer being uneducated gets input from almost 10 various sources. He is not able to process that information with his own available skill set or expertise. But over a period of time, there are people who are educating them what is right, what is wrong. In the mandis, this used to happen, that there were some mandis wherein there are people who are selflessly educating the farmer. So I think we still have a long way to go, and some system, I mean, government can create a policy, but implementation of that, some industry which works on a very fair, cost to margin process, which is transparent to the farmer to build trust, so that he is able to preserve his produce and sell himself. I mean, I don't know. As an industry person, we can only suggest somebody has to come forward as a group to support and assist these causes.
As a Blue Star, do you support this activity through your CSR activities or something?
Actually, it is not possible for us to do that till we are validated by the government, because CSR activity has to be validated by the government. So now there is nobody who's approaching us as of now that we want to set up such a structure which will need, the organization or the company's support in terms of finances, and the same person entity has to be having a, say or support or validation from, MOFPI or some government agency which has prescribed the guidelines for these FPOs.
No, what I am saying is that, apart from what you said about vested interest, there is also one more problem, because FPO works like a company, and the owners do not have, even understanding of how the companies work. So what we have found, and we have worked with setting up few FPOs which are doing well, and in a backward state like Bihar. The most important thing is that hand-holding them with the management inputs, developing business plans for them, and accountancy, because transparency amongst the growers becomes a very big issue once they are as a group or this thing, then they give the contribution. So this support is not coming from anywhere. Government is also not giving this type of a support. They are giving support in terms of contribution to equity, etc., but not in terms of this thing. Anyway, now my just 1 or 2 minutes, and I think my this will be to Dr. Singh. Dr. Singh, actually, the 10 cold storages, if we do away with something like 2,000 storages, which are multi-commodity cold storages, others are mostly potato cold storages. 6,300 out of that, probably 5,500 were the potato cold storages. The figure that you have given. The new 2,000, the 3,000 cold storage that have come up, some of them are multi-commodity cold storage. But the problem is that in apple and potato, if we leave aside these two things, we do not have a third thing which goes into cold storages.
No, banana is coming up very majorly now.
But banana is not going into cold storage, that is in the ripening chambers. Banana is mostly ripening chamber, and we have in pomegranate and banana both, but the issue is that we have availability throughout the year, so there is hardly any need of storage. But we do not have, say, either protocols or systems for storage of many other commodities. That's why I was talking about broccoli's shelf life. Broccoli shelf life, as mentioned, is 3 to 4 weeks. But if it could go beyond 2 months or something like that, or any commodities which have shelf life of more than 3 months or something like that, will become good candidates to go into cold storages. Carrots is one, but there are no protocols. So, is there anything specifically happening in CIFE to develop protocols for other commodities? Dr. Singh, I think he's left. Dr. Singh has left. Okay, Mr. Colgan, Richard, do you have any, what are other commodities normally kept in cold storages in UK, for example?
You use cold storage a lot for most vegetables, apart from carrots. Interestingly, carrots we keep in the ground over winter. We have a fairly cool winter, so they will store in the ground. But most vegetables, potato, apples, are the biggest use of cold storage. But mostly we have cabbage and broccoli. Broccoli for about 3 weeks, cabbage for 8 months. Onions equally they can be cold stored. But they're the major users of cold storage in the UK. Most other vegetables are only temporarily stored in cold storage, so tomatoes, peppers, before they're being shipped out to consumers.
Right. Well, I think we are also now getting this thing. Time it is already over. We were supposed to close it by 12 o'clock. So I will, in the end, thank all the panelists for very, very interesting and positive contribution towards this very interesting topic of post-harvest management. Because if in India we want to increase the income of farmers, I think more than productivity, in my opinion, the marketing and remunerative prices will play a role in that. And that can happen only if we have this thing. So this is, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope that we get any questions or queries. Mr. Joshi, you can forward those to the concerned panelist and they can give the response to this.
Sure.
Finally, I will like to thank the panelists, Richard, who has come at 6 o'clock in the morning to attend this meeting, Dr. Singh, Mr. Java, the organizers from CAI, the sport team from CAI, and IT team from CAI. Thank you all very much for participating in this Kisan Goshthi.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye-bye.